Fine. You're smiling excessively.
Okay.
Okay, yeah. Well, good luck with that.
Because you're so cute.
So, yeah. Good thing the lights are off, right? So I invited Jill on the show today because unfortunately Jill's had to live through the loss of a spouse, her husband, who would have been, what, 26?
20. Well, he was 29 when it happened.
Yeah, and it's been how many years? 27?
I knew you were going to ask me that one. Well, it was 1993.
Yeah.
So you have to do the math there. Well, wait a minute, though. But I'm 56, so he would have been 57.
Dang.
This year.
Wow.
So in December.
And so Jeff McKinney is his name, and he is my wife's brother, and of course Jenny and Crystal's brother as well. And so you and him are married for how long, Jill?
We were married for 8 years.
8 years, and you had 2 kids?
3 children.
3 children, right.
Yes.
Yep. Okay. Yep. And so if you just want to take a second, if you can, it's not too hard, and just kind of walk us back through kind of, you guys were married, had your kids, and there's kind of what happened when he passed.
Yeah, so we actually had started dating in high school. So we had dated 5 years, and then we had been married for 8 years. And our children were, at the time of the accident, they were, our son Brett was 9 months, and Lauren, our daughter, was 3 years old, and Jessica was 6 years old. And it was August 26th of 1993. And it happened at about 10 o'clock at night, but I didn't find out till about 2:30 in the morning that he had been hit by a drunk driver. So he was coming home from Kansas City, and he was on Interstate 55. And, I mean, you have to remember back then, too, there weren't any cell phones or any way of communication. So he called me before he left, which he went to Kansas City quite often. He worked for Hallmark Cards. And so he would always call me before he left. So then I could always kind of know when he'd be home. And so then it was kind of odd that night because I usually always woke up whenever he was supposed to be home. Just so, I don't know, it was just like an alarm that went off on me. But that night I didn't, which is probably a good thing because I don't know what I would have done,
And how many hours did it take for him usually to get home? I don't remember.
About 6 to 7.
6 to 7, okay. So it was a pretty long drive.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So then at 2:30 in the morning, I was woken up by a loud knocking, and I woke up, and I don't remember if I looked at the clock. I don't remember, but my natural instinct was to take my arm on his side of the bed just to see if he was there. Because, I mean, when you hear this knocking at 2:30 in the morning and he wasn't there. And so I was just, the first thing that went through my mind was, that's really odd.
So the alarm bells are starting to
right. So as soon as I woke up, I knew something was. And then you got to think too. I'm thinking, who keeps knocking? We lived in a 2-story house, and so I got up and I walked down the stairs, and the knocking just keeps getting louder and louder. And our doorway. It was around the corner, so I stood, I saw light shining through our door, because our door had windows in it. And I mean, you have to remember too, I was by myself with 3 kids, and so I just stayed behind the wall, and I said, "Who's there?" And I just kept thinking this whole time, I know he would have called me. I mean, somehow he would have called me if something was wrong, and it had been 4 hours. And so I kept asking him, "Who are you?" And this guy said, "Well, you need to open the door. You need to open the door." I said, "Well, I'm not going to open the door. Not going to open the door." And so then I couldn't tell you the timeline. And so finally I just said to him, I said, I mean, we were yelling. I guess I was not mad yelling, but just so we could hear each other. And
right.
So finally I just said, "Well, where's Jeff?" I just, so I started yelling, "Where's Jeff?" And then he goes, you need to open the door.
So he hadn't yet tell you who he was? Was he?
I don't remember. Maybe he did. I don't.
Of course, being just woke up and probably still a little bit foggy from sleep, it's not like you're going to remember every fine detail like that anyway, right?
Yeah. I mean, I still see myself standing there. And so then when he wouldn't answer me where Jeff was, maybe I felt safe. I don't know. So then I turned the corner and I opened the door, and it was, at the time it was the corner that was filling in, because he should have brought like a sheriff. He should have brought a police with him, but he didn't know that.
So he was by himself.
Correct.
Oh, okay.
In an unmarked car.
No uniform on.
Correct.
So some strange guy's beating on your door, yelling, open the door, and you're like, no.
Correct. Yes. Yeah. And so come to find out later, what usually happens, I guess the coroner maybe brings a sheriff's department with or something, and that's what he should have done. But, regardless, it doesn't really matter, but maybe I would have opened the door sooner. I don't know. So then I opened the door, and he handed me our checkbook. It was our checkbook, and I didn't think it was something else. And actually, before I opened the door, I asked if he was dead. I just said, "Is he dead? Is he dead?" And then, because by then I don't know, I think I just knew.
Kind of had a feeling or something was telling you.
Well, because there's no way there's just no way he wouldn't have called me or done something.
Right.
So, and I do remember yelling that out, and then he handed me his checkbook, and then I just went into shock right then. I didn't know at the time. And so then he walked me into our kitchen and he said, "Do you have any children?" And so I told him, and he went, "Oh my goodness," or he said, "Oh my God." And I said, "Yeah." And then he said, "Well, who do you want to call?" And I said, "Well, I need to call his parents. I need to call Jeff's parents." And he goes, "Well, I'll call his parents." And I said, "No, I want to call his parents."
That's your responsibility. You're his wife. Is that kind of how you took it, or was it just something you felt like it's better?
I just felt like they needed to hear it from somebody that they knew.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just was like, and maybe I was close enough to him that I don't know. I was just like, no, I want to call him.
You just knew you needed to be the one to tell him.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I called his mom. They were divorced. And so I called his mom, and that phone call was horrible, and you don't have a way to tell them.
There's no easy way.
Yeah. And I don't remember now how I told his dad, or, it'd be an interesting question. Like, did I call you, or did like one of the girls call you?
I bet Pam, Crystal, or Jenny would know the answer to that question.
Yeah.
One of them would know.
Yeah. Because I remember his mom's phone call, and that doesn't mean that I didn't call his dad. It's just that, certain things you can't remember.
Yeah, because when you have so much going on and you're such a state of shock, I know looking back, with Nicholas, it was 10 years, and
I know
we look back though, and there's a whole lot of details that, to your point, are foggy. I don't remember certain things. Now, other people do and have that little bit of perspective that I don't, but there are some details like, well, you did this or you said that. I'm like, oh, I really don't remember. And not in a bad way. It just means this is something you did,
Yeah.
You don't remember.
Yeah.
Your mind's not registering everything that's going on right now. You're still in that whole, and I don't know if that's how you felt, but that surreal, like almost, is this really happening? That shock that everything just seems so, I don't know. It's hard to explain. Just weird.
Yeah, it is.
It's almost like you're in limbo and you're just stepping through this and you're not even thinking.
Well, and I remember, which they told me, my whole body was just, it wouldn't quit shaking. It was just like really bad.
So you had a physical reaction as well, not
Correct.
Just the emotional and mental too. Wow.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And he tried to, I think I was sitting in a chair because I know he was trying to because I don't know why I just felt the responsibility to call people. So then, so I don't remember. And you know what? I do kind of remember. So he told me too, he said, somebody has to go down and, you have to say this is Jeff.
ID the body or whatever they say, or the person.
Yeah, and I remember thinking, well, I guess that should be his dad. I mean, whether that be right or wrong, I don't know. I knew I didn't want to go. I did know that. I just had no...
You didn't want to see that?
Not at all. No. And so maybe I thought, I don't know, his dad should go. But so I think I called his dad and said, would you go down? And then we were actual family friends with, it was the coroner, the Bob Mason, and I think he found out somehow, and so he just went and ID'd the body. So Harold didn't have to go down.
So none of you guys had to go down.
Correct.
Oh, so this is all in Springfield.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like it was local.
Correct.
Wow, that even makes it a little bit harder.
Correct. And not that I wanted to send his dad down there either. I don't, and I don't even know if I asked his dad or, you know what I mean? I don't know. I don't. That's just
whatever happened, that's how it kind of came about.
Yeah. So anyway, which I was glad then nobody had to go down. So Bob Mason went down, ID'd the body. He knew Jeff, he knew who he was. And then he brought him back. So then I called my family members from there. I'm sure his parents then called the girls. I don't think I called them. I'm sure his mom, and I probably said, well, will you call the girls? Because I don't remember those phone calls at all. So then, and then I called my family, and so then everybody came over to our house.
And this is at 4 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Probably by the time everybody got there, it was probably between 4 and 5 a.m.
So all that happened within just a matter of a couple of hours, all those notifications, and then people just... Mm-hmm. And then, did anybody wake the kids, or did you just kind of wait till the morning, let them wake up on their own?
No, I let them... I didn't want anyone to wake up the kids. Lauren was 3, Brett was 9 months, so it wasn't going to affect them.
Right.
And I still see Jessica coming down the stairs. So she came down the stairs, she woke up.
Because she was 5, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, yeah, 5 or 6. Yeah.
Now, do the other two, the 2 younger ones, Brett and Lauren, have any memories of their dad?
No.
No.
Not at all.
Not
and
at that
I think
age.
Jessica just, she'll say she just has, vague memories.
Yeah, because I know... I was 2 when my mom divorced my dad. And of course, I had never seen him since then till I was 37. But between then and when she married my stepdad, I don't have any memories of my dad either from that age. So that's why I was asking that question. Being so young, probably don't have a lot of, real memories of who he was.
I do remember about 6 months after the accident, I was taking ice skating. And I was getting the 3 kids into the car. And Lauren... she turned to me and she said, well, isn't Dad going to come with us? And I thought that was really, I would just remember, I was just like, didn't know what to say. And I remember Jessica yelling at her, Lauren, Dad's not here. But not that is right or wrong. And then that's a mind of a 3.5-year-old too. So I just thought at that time, they just have no idea what time is and what. Yeah, they don't. She still assumed that her dad was coming home, I guess.
Yeah, she just, where is he? I don't remember.
Yeah. So
kind of taking it back to like when it happened and then kind of going forward from there, what was your life like? Because you said, you're taking them roller skating. Are you vibrating?
Oh. Sorry.
Potential spam. Probably your car insurance or your car warranty's out. Or if you don't pay your taxes, they're going to come arrest you. And the sheriff, the marshals are on their way.
I've been known to do that.
Yeah. Obviously the first couple weeks, it's just crazy, right? You've got to, do the obituary and plan the funeral and go through all that. And so when you were doing all that over that course of them week or two, was it just, I think, was it more just going through the motions, but you didn't have a lot of thought or processes going on at that time?
I think it, yeah, I don't know if you even go through the motions or if you just sit there and I just remember thinking, what am I going to do? I just remember it was just Jeff and I had a really good marriage. He was a great guy. I felt guilty. I was like, I wish it were me. These kids should not be left with me. It should have been him. I was more, and then I was like, I don't even think I was going through the motions. I was just thinking more about Jeff.
And so when you said that, you said something pretty profound there where it should have been him or should have been you and not him. Yeah. And they shouldn't have been left with you. What made you feel that way? What made you think that?
I probably he was just a really good dad, really good parent, really smart, always wanted to do better, always wanted his kids to have a good life. And he was, he was funny, he was smart, and I don't know, I was just more at a loss. But of course, though, maybe he would have been too. I don't know, because you do things together.
I think in a relationship like that, there's roles that each parent plays. One is more of the provider side. The other one's more the loving, nurturing. And it can go either way. It could be the husband's more nurturing, and it could be the wife's that's more the provider, or vice versa. I think they're integral in a partnership in a marriage, right?
I agree too. And and he was also probably the more, I didn't grow up in a loving family, so I didn't have the natural, Jeff's sisters would probably tell you that I don't have the natural love.
I think you just sit there and laugh a lot.
I do. I'm and maybe he had more of that too. So I don't know. I just was, maybe that was more in my thought, and more just more what do you do from here? I had never lost anybody either.
So that was your first loss in your whole life, not a grandparent or anything. That was it.
Right.
Well, I'll talk about trial by fire.
Started off with a bang.
Yeah, I guess so. Jeez.
I was like,
wow.
Yeah. Yeah. So when and then it's funny because a lot of people make the comment to me. They're like, oh my God, that's what happened to you? And I'm like, yeah.
Well, what is that supposed to? It's what's that supposed to mean?
That's what I feel like. I'm always like, oh, what do I say to that?
So that's what happened to you. What do you mean that's what happened? Yeah, that's what happened to me, jerk.
Well, people feel bad, and they're it stops them in their track. I don't usually like to mention it, because I feel more bad for the other person.
Isn't that weird?
I
do the same thing.
I'm just
when somebody hears,
I try to walk around it,
Well, and we're, obviously I've talked a lot about Nicholas over the years with the organ donation stuff and all that, but when somebody that doesn't know you meet you and then they hear you, and whatever reason you mention it, it may just come out in a general conversation and, oh, how old's he? I'm like, well, he passed away. Oh. And then it's this weird, awkward silence. And then it's almost like they tiptoe you around you the rest of the night. It's like, listen, I've already lived this. I'm not any more broken than I'm going to be.
Actually, I'm much better now than I was
10 years ago. I was a freaking train wreck, right? Yeah. So it's it's funny. And I feel bad for him. I'm like, you guys don't know what to think of this. I feel really bad for him. But I'm like, it does happen every day to people. I'm like, I'm here to tell you that you can get to the other side. You can. It's not an easy path. No. And the other side probably isn't what you thought it would be. Because I do say it's one of these things that you live with every day. Mm-hmm. Every day. You still live your life. You still go make your memories and move on and continue to build your life and all that. But it is still always there. Mm-hmm. So it's not, it was it gives that, and I love the wisdom, time heals all wounds. Mm-hmm. In some cases, I would say probably stitches is one, maybe, your physical wounds, a scab and a Band-Aid. Emotional wounds, time doesn't always heal those. Sometimes time just helps you learn how to live with it and deal with it, and then continue to live a happy, normal, or as normal as it can be, but meaningful life. Yes.
And it changes you extremely. I mean, it just like, and I've, a couple of my family members, which I haven't enjoyed over the years, say, well, you really changed. And I'm thinking, well, that's what life is about. Even if he hadn't died, I still would have changed. Mm-hmm. But I guess I always am like, well, how did I did change. I don't have a hard time admitting that I did change. And when I think back too, I think some of the things I changed for the better. Some things, I really struggled. And I struggled to this day. It's just, it is quite a struggle. I knew I was doing this podcast, and last night I dreamed about him. And so then I woke up and I was like, because I thought he was alive again.
Did that kind of almost did that kind of take you back a little bit? Like mm-hmm. just kind of an awkward day? Because I get those too. It's like, for whatever reason.
Right, for whatever reason.
And sometimes it's out of nowhere. Mm-hmm. That happens. You have that dream or you have that vivid memory, and then it's almost like you just can't seem to find your balance for the day.
Yeah.
You're just off a little bit all day, mm-hmm. And you don't mean to be.
No, not at all.
It does that to you. Do you think afterwards, and you made mention that you didn't grow up in a real super loving family, and he did, I think. I think all the girls and him would tell you, especially with who knowing who their mom was. I mean, she was all rainbows and butterflies, right? And she was very good at that nurturing and all that. Do you think over time after he passed and it was you by yourself for a while, do you think that helped you with that relationship with your kids?
I think, when I think back now, when I think about it, I think it did to a point, but I think I was also very guarded with my love because I had been so hurt by the death of Jeff.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Do you know what that means?
Yeah, absolutely. It's hard to completely open back up and love, and you love unconditionally regardless, especially when it comes to your children, but you're devastated. I mean, you're heartbroken, and something is going to sacrifice, because when you're trying to heal and work through that grief and you're so heartbroken, yes, you love them, but you're not able to show it maybe as much as you'd like to, because sometimes you're just so broken, you're trying to heal a little bit too.
Well, and I think that's what happened over the years. And, maybe if somebody would have told me that, maybe I would have been more aware of it, but I think I realized it later on.
What do you think happened that made, or was there a specific thing, or did you just...
No, I don't think there was...
Just kind of had an awareness at some point?
Yeah, or is it because I didn't... Would it ever come natural to me because of how I grew up? And not that that's... I mean, everybody grows up in different ways, and you can't blame it on your childhood.
Sure, and I agree.
I mean...
But, you are who you are, too. I mean, because your childhood is what develops you into the adulthood.
Correct.
And so then some of the stuff that you're dealing with, you're trying to learn already as an adult. And changing behavior as an adult is a lot harder than changing behavior as a child, right?
Correct.
And
yes.
And then you have that event happen, mm-hmm. and now you have this.
And I was also, when I think back, though, I was also very protective of my children. It was like...
My headphones fell off.
Happened? See, that should have happened to me.
I scratched my ear and then they fell off, and then they fell behind my back, and now I'm a hot mess. Well, at least we can laugh.
I mean, on the other hand, I was also like to the point where I was so protective of my children that I couldn't. I mean, that was like that's all I did with my life was okay. It's just as about my kids. It's whatever's going to make them happy. Their life has been so uprooted that.
So being that protective, was there, when you say protective of your children, was that in any relationships you were trying to have when you kind of got back out into the dating world? Or was that just in general with everybody that you were just protective? That was kind of your way to shield them from everything that was going on.
Well, and I wouldn't say necessarily shield, just that, okay, we were going to try to have a good life because of what happened.
So you hey, it's just us now.
I was trying. I was trying.
Yeah.
Not that I,
well,
it was like, I wasn't ever going to move. I was like, because I felt like my kids needed to stay in the same community, have their same friends. I didn't want them to, and maybe that was wrong too. I don't know.
Well, I think going back and trying to analyze all the decisions made back then is a little unfair to yourself, simply because you did the best with what you had and with what you knew. And every decision you were making was for trying to provide some sense of stability and normalcy and, enjoyment still throughout life. So hindsight's always 20/20. There's always armchair quarterbacks, but at the end of the day, you did the best you could with what you had. And I mean, you got handed a shitty deal. Yeah. Period.
And, I also tell people that I'm like, it could have been a lot worse. I mean,
sure.
I'm like, Jeff and I did have it set up so that if something did happen to one of us or both of us, that, we would be able to stay in our house. I would be able to provide for the children. I mean, I didn't have to worry about losing my house or moving the children, or, they could still stay in their environment. So I was very lucky on that side of it, because there are some people that they lose their spouse and they've got to...
And they lose everything along with it.
They lose everything along with it.
Yeah, their whole life gets turned upside down.
I mean, I was very lucky in that part. And I had a lot of people helping me. I had a lot of great friends. I mean, I realized that you need your friends. I had family. I had, you know what I mean? I felt also along the way, I liked the kids to be with Jeff's family, because I felt like they were the ones that knew him. And I wanted them to know their dad.
I see that. I think that's a great thing. I mean, we've enjoyed them. I've been in the family for, 20 years, I guess. We've been married. I'll be 19 in January, and together 20. Well, by then it'd be 21. And I mean, they were young when we came around, and I mean, I've enjoyed all of them. I think they're great kids, and I think it was important for them to know that side of the family. Yeah. A lot of people don't do that.
Right.
Yeah. And I think that's kind of a disservice to the children, not even to the other people, but more to the children, because they have curiosity. They want to know who their dad was. And the only way they can know that is by, like you said, his family knows him the best.
Yeah. Yeah.
Especially
even though I do say, he wasn't a bit like his sisters.
He's not emotionally unstable.
Crazy.
Oh, they're all crazy. They are crazy all bitches. Crazy. It's crazy. They're going to be like, Jill, we're going to kill you.
I know. They know they are.
Oh, they know they are too. I look at them like, you guys are all nuts, and you wonder why I am the way I am. Well, you got to be thick-skinned to be around this group of people.
I know. But they're the ones that grew up with them that, I mean, it's just funny to hear stories about, like, Jenny and Jeff. And because they weren't very far apart at all, Jenny and Jeff. So.
No, Jenny, what did you say Jeff was going to be? 57?
He would have been 57.
So Jenny's 58.
Okay.
Or be 59. I think they're just like a year and a half apart, because I know George is going to be 56, I think. We were just talking about this yesterday. Pam and I were. So I think Jenny was just about a year and a half older than Jeff. Wasn't very much.
Okay. Yeah, I know it wasn't very much either. So, yeah.
Dang.
Yeah.
So now, and I'll probably have to go back and I'll edit out the company that he worked for. I'll bleep their name.
Oh, okay.
I don't want to get in trouble because I don't have permission, right? Oh, but no, that's okay. Yeah. We got a little doinky thing on my thing. I can go boink. Were they supportive?
His company?
Yeah.
Oh, very much so.
Yeah.
I mean, at the time, they were very family oriented. Our house was not finished at the time. They helped me finish the house. I mean, they were more like friends than, and the plant manager up there was, I mean, even to this day, he'll tell me that that's the most profound thing that ever happened to him when
that's
Jeff
tough.
McKinney died in a car accident.
Yeah.
Yeah. But no, they were great.
So Jeff was a walk-on to the Chicago Bears, correct?
Well, he wasn't a walk-on. He actually had a contract.
So he had a contract with
Correct.
Chicago Bears. Okay.
So him and I got married after his junior year in college.
Okay.
And he played 2 years up at IVCC, the junior college, and then he played 2 years at Western.
Okay. And
then he got a contract with the Bears, and then he was up there for maybe 2 to 3 weeks, and he called me. He also had a job with the company already. And he was going back and forth on whether or not, he was like, well, I'm not going to make the Bears. He knew he wasn't because they had just won the Super Bowl that year.
So that'd been 1985?
Was that it?
Or 86? I don't remember.
Yeah, probably 80s. Yeah. Football fans would know.
Yeah.
And so he was like, yeah, no, I'm not going to make this team. And then he was like, well, I could still, he goes, I know I could make a team somewhere. He'd flown out to the New York Jets and had like a physical with them and done a couple things with them. And then so we had kind of talked back and forth like, well, what do you do from here? He had also had at the time, this wasn't, you weren't aware of this, but him and I kind of were. He had already had a couple of really bad concussions.
Oh.
Where he had lost his memory, and which now I know he would be bedridden at times with migraines.
No,
but I'm sure it was all from
exactly
that.
What happened. Yeah.
Yeah. So we had gone kind of back and forth, and he goes, you know what? He goes, a lot of people up here trying out for all these NFL teams have nothing. He said, this is it for them. And he said, and he said, I just think I want to come home. And I kind of left it up to him because I didn't want him to come back to me in 10 years and was like,
you took this away from me. This is your fault.
I'm like, I'm not telling you anything.
That's why I lay on the couch, gotten fat, and smoke 10 packs of cigarettes a day. You stole my glory.
I know. So yeah. So then he made the decision. He came home. He was, he was settled after a while. He was not a happy camper when he came home. Because he was very driven, had a lot of confidence, very sarcastic.
So you think when he'd made that decision to come home, there still was a little bit of second guessing his decision? Maybe he just had to kind of work through that once he got home and had to get kind of resettled back into the family life.
It took a while.
I would imagine the sports life being up there in that environment is much different than when you're home just being a family man, right?
We went up there and I was shocked. Yeah, I was shocked. They were even asking him for autographs when he came out of practice, and he would have to stand around and sign a bunch of autographs, and yeah.
And so when he passed, did the team send anything or?
Oh no. Now IVCC did and Western.
Okay.
But no, not the Bears, because he was only up there for 2 to 3 weeks.
Oh, so he wasn't there very long.
So it wasn't. Yeah.
Didn't get really a chance to kind of get really integrated the whole team environment and everything. Mm-mm. But at least you got to meet a lot of cool people, right?
Oh, he got to meet everybody. All those guys on there that won the Super Bowl.
Yeah,
the Fridge,
Oh, yeah.
all those people.
That had to be a pretty cool experience, though.
Yeah.
At least he's, I'm sure he still had those stories he liked to share about being a Bear, for at least the short time he was.
But he was also the type, though, that didn't want to take any... He was a really good football player, but he didn't need to be told that.
He already, it was just he knew that. It was good. He didn't
want any praise or any...
He didn't need that accolades.
No, not at all.
That's pretty cool, though.
Oh, yeah. He was very, yeah.
Yeah, I bet. Well, Pam's always told me how athletic he was. He was that star of a player. He had that caliber of ability and drive and toughness and strength and, all the crazy stuff that, he had. So
he had the mind and because you got to have the mind and the brain and along with your athletic ability. And
knowing some of the head injuries he had, he probably wouldn't have the brain for very long if he'd have continued, right?
Well, that's what I think now. You kind of wonder.
Yeah. Yeah, because...
What would have happened?
That whole awareness now is like a lot of these football players when they retire and then they have a lot of these weird medical conditions going on and then they're coming to find out, it's like, well, these guys have sustained like head injury after head injury after head injury for all these years,
Yeah.
Some of these guys...
And he played a lot of years and he was a running back, so he got hit hard a lot of years. And, you know, it was the same thing. You know, he'd come out of a game and I could always tell when he lost he couldn't remember. He would lose his memory and then they would put him back in. But I could always see it from the stand.
You kind of knew the look.
Oh, yeah.
The look.
Yeah,
you're like, oh, boy, he took one on the
he's
chin.
Done for.
Yeah, it's over.
Yeah, but then it's like they did back then. They just...
Well, no, they didn't recognize it, right?
Right.
That's crazy stuff, isn't it?
It was fun to watch.
I bet he was.
It was a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So, after all that, moving on, how long did it take before you wanted to kind of get back out in the dating world and meet somebody and all that kind of stuff?
Oh, so I kind of described my grieving as like the first 6 months I was like totally out of it. I don't even know if I remember. I kind of quit eating. I was like...
And as skinny as you are, you can't afford to do that.
Well, at the time I did. Brett was only 9 months old, so I lost all the baby fat within a couple weeks. Poof!
Poof, look at me.
It was gone. And so then you got to try to figure out how to... I kind of said in my mind one day, okay, I can either just sit around and self-pity or you need to get out there. So it's like, you just try to figure out, because, you know how it is. You're mad because people are out there going to the grocery store and they're doing their everyday thing. And you're just like... It's
not fair. Yeah. Why do they get to do that? Why am I being punished?
Yeah. Like, I don't think I ever want to go to the grocery store again. Don't think I can.
Well, you hate it. You don't hate, but it's just...
I'll never forget driving up to the visitation and going through Metamora and thinking, oh... Everybody's still going about their life.
Yeah, but here I am. Yeah.
Yeah.
This sucks.
Yeah, big time.
I remember talking about that with everybody after Nick died, and they'd set up that where everybody do that meal thing where they'd bring meals to you once a day, and and that went on, and I finally said, and I remember Pam and I talking about it. I said, all the support is great and it's wonderful, and the outpouring of it. I said, but eventually that's going to stop. Everybody's going to go back to their everyday normal life routine. And that's when it's going to start getting really, really hard. And it did. Because when that stopped and everybody went back to their normal life, because, it's like, look, we've done our job. We helped you. We showed you support and love and caring and our sympathies and all that stuff. And it was fantastic, that everybody had that outpouring.
Right.
But it does eventually stop because they do have their own lives to get back to. And it wasn't their loss.
No.
They don't share in that for the most part. So when all that's done and you're still there by yourself,
then you have to navigate.
And it is miserable. Yeah. Is the only way I can describe it. It is a deep, dark, crappy place to be.
It is. Yeah. And then it's like I said, I just felt like sand just kept pouring on top of me and I didn't know how to.
Yeah, like you're almost stuck in place and the world's moving around you.
Yeah.
That's what it felt like to me. It's just like, fuck.
Yeah.
It's just like, God.
Yeah. So the other problem the problem that I had with the dating world is that everybody wanted to fix me up.
Ugh.
And
that had to be terrible.
Well, it got really awkward because, one of your friends would say to you, oh, you want to go out with my brother? I can picture he's great. He's blah, blah, blah. And then pretty soon a friend of theirs or their brother would call me. People from high school started calling me. It was just like, it was very odd to me.
You're like,
and I was like,
don't really want to do that.
It's like, I'm good, really. I more or less felt pressured.
Yeah. Because you wanted to let it happen on its own and just kind of.
I felt pressured.
Yeah.
And so a couple times I did go out, and then I remember one guy, he took me out, and we were about an hour. We'd gotten into Peoria, and I just looked at him. I go, you know what? Can you take me home? I just want to go home. It's like, and I don't even remember the ride home, but I just thought, this is ridiculous.
Oh, you like this guy?
I was like, I'm doing this to make somebody else happy.
Yeah, this isn't for me.
I am doing it to make somebody else happy. I'd rather be home on a Friday and Saturday night with my children
That probably was an awkward ride home, wasn't it?
Well, I'm sure it was, but I don't remember. I don't remember it, which is good. I don't know. I don't even know how I got out of the car.
Well,
how
were
do you
you drunk?
I got out of the car?
Maybe you threw you out when you drove by. See ya. Get out. How many drinks did you have before you got home?
So yeah, and so I didn't really do a lot of dating. And that was fine. That was fine with me. And then I kind of remember after that date, I said to myself, okay, it's going to be 20 years before I get married. And I was fine with that because actually I had gotten to the point where I was comfortable with myself.
How close to the 20 did you get?
Oh, well, you know that story, Kay.
I don't know how you guys met.
Oh, you don't?
No.
You've never heard that story?
No, I have no idea how you guys met.
Oh, that's a good story.
Well, spill the beans.
That's a good story. Okay, so I was, and that is one of the things that I learned because, Jeff and I had grown up together. So then I felt really, I went places with myself or whoever asked me, I went. Sometimes I didn't want to go, but I, went. And I think that was really good for me. And not that we would go I didn't go anywhere exciting, but anyway. So Hallmark where Jeff worked at had asked me to come up there and work. It was probably, I don't know, maybe 3 to 4 months after he had passed. And so I went up there a couple days a week, which was really good for me because they were like my friends up there. It was very comforting. I wasn't too far from home. And so then I don't know, I've been working up there for a while and then...
You were working?
I didn't quit either.
Oh They fired you?
That's a personal joke.
Anyway,
That's another podcast.
That's another podcast. How many jobs exactly have you had, Jill?
A lot.
All right. Anyway, go ahead.
So then my husband now came to work up there. And I met him and I was like, oh, he's a really nice guy. And we would go to lunch as groups. We talked all the time at work. In my mind also, too, I was not looking, not getting married, I was good. I didn't want anybody else in my, I don't think anybody could take the place of Jeff.
Right.
And you have to remember, too, I was like very protective of my children. I was just like, so, I kept wanting to fix him up with my sister.
Does he know that?
I can't believe you've never heard
I've never heard this.
It's even funnier now.
Well, yeah.
Right?
You're trying to pawn him off on your sister, and then you stole him.
And my sister's crazy.
Well.
Yeah. She's mentally ill. That's what's so funny about this. So, because they were the same age.
Okay, so
they were the same age.
Because you're 8 years older.
My sister and Steve, correct. I'm 8 years older than my husband, Steve.
Right.
This story's even crazier when I think back as to what happened. So then, but he was always dating somebody, or she was always dating somebody. It just never worked out. And so then I was up at work one day, and the receptionist, she says to me, I hear you're trying to set Steve up with your sister. I said, yeah. I was like, don't you think he'd be, he's so nice and he's so cute and
he's a hottie.
Don't you think that would be great? And she's like, oh, honey, you need to take him for yourself. And I was like, her name was Barb. I was like, Barb, no.
He's too young. Ew.
I was like, I don't think so. That's not going to happen. And so, and like I said, he was 8 years younger. And he had he'd only been a year out of school. So when I met him, he had just gotten out of school. So I knew him for about a year. And so then one day, I don't even remember. I think I asked him again. I said, my sister's not dating anybody. Would you like to, can I give you her phone number? And he said, well, I really don't want to go out with your sister. I'd like to go out with you. And I was like, oh, was kind of looking around. Okay. I was kind of looking around the room like, is he talking to me? And I just...
Who is this? Like, who are you going out with?
And I was just like, okay, I said, okay, but we can't go. I said, I got to go. I'm going to a couple places. That was the beginning of May. I said, we can't go out till June. I was busy. So we went out and I was busy. You were busy. Busy. It's like, okay, well, that's fine. Whenever. We'll figure it out later. And so then, so of course, everybody up at work watched all this. You know what I mean? As it was happening.
Oh, yeah. They watched the love story unfold.
Correct.
So did you actually wait till June to go out with him?
Yeah.
Where'd he take you out on the first date?
So we went and hit golf balls, and we went and ate at the Olive Garden.
Seriously?
What?
That's like the lamest date ever.
What is
You're
wrong
not even
with
a
that?
golfer.
What? No. But I sure did look cute in my skirt.
You probably skimped it up a little bit, didn't you?
You think? So it's like...
So how long did it take for you guys to really just get serious? Did it just kind of take off from there? Really
yeah. Like, extremely fast. I mean, you got to think, too, we already knew each other for a year.
So that whole get to knowing each other thing was gone.
Yeah, it was gone. And I think it was just like a mutual attraction that just...
Jesus, Jill, you didn't waste any time, did you?
I didn't. So that's why, when you think back, you're like, holy shit. I mean, it did. And then we were engaged in October and we're married in March. So we went out in June.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Well, but you know what? If it works, it works. That's kind of how Pam and I went, right?
Sometimes when I think back, I'm like, I can't believe this worked.
So how long after Jeff passed away was that? A couple years, probably?
Yeah. 2 to 3 years.
So you're only like 17 or 18 years short of the 20-year goal you had set before you got married again.
You think?
Yeah.
So just you know your math.
Yeah. Very, very rarely. I just have an engineering degree, but I hate math.
Okay.
I'm not good at it.
Yeah. So there went that plan. Not that I plan, but.
Is there a lot of his personality that reminds you of Jeff?
There is.
Cause I mean, Steve's high energy, man. I mean, he's like go, go, go. And he talks. He's a bullshitter like the rest of us. And he's always got one line. I mean,
yeah.
Great guy.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, and he never definitely the build, like I was just talking to somebody the other day that didn't know Jeff. And I said, well, Steve definitely has Jeff's build. I said, well, I must like that kind of build.
But you hate fat people is what you're saying.
Yes.
Thanks, Jill. Thanks. Nice.
And yeah, definitely high energy, talkative. Yeah. Jeff but Jeff's sense of humor was like over the top.
Was it?
I'm sure his sisters would tell you that.
Yeah.
Very sarcastic. Steve is more kind. In fact, I tell Brett, my son, I said, well, you were a lot kinder than your dad. Like, Brett definitely, I mean, he's funny. Yeah, Brett is pretty funny. Yeah.
And Brett's pretty tall. What is he, like 6'2", 6'3"? Yeah. I mean, he's a pretty tall kid.
Yeah, he's not built at all like his dad.
But Jeff wasn't that tall, right? He was like 5'10", maybe 5'11". Yeah, he's not like what you would call a super tall guy, right? No. I mean, but he was built. I mean, he's built. I mean, he was a football player.
Oh, yeah, big time built.
Worked out all the time, probably exercised, and was just a madman.
Yeah.
Well, that's good.
Lauren and Jessica are short. Brett, I don't know. But see, Jenny's tall.
Yeah, it could come because
Brenda was tall.
No,
I mean she wasn't short
like 5'7", I think.
Well,
how tall are you?
But she had a relative, I think, that was really tall. I had talked to her about it.
Oh, did she?
I have a brother that's tall. My older brother is pretty tall.
So it could have been somewhere in the gene line.
Somewhere.
Somebody got tall because he's tall.
Yeah. Lauren and Jessica are not very tall. Lauren is only like 5'1", 5'2".
Poor thing.
But Brenda told me her mom was only 4 something.
Yeah, Jenny's tall. Pam is somewhere in the middle, but Crystal's a short one.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's not like they're all, it's kind of funny because it's like there's that range, and I think Pam is 5'6".
She's probably my height.
Yeah, I think Jenny's like 5'11". I think her and I are the same height. I think Crystal's like 5'2" or 5'3". She's pretty, I may be a little up, but she's right in that range. She's pretty short.
Yeah, she's short.
Yeah, poor thing. I make fun of her.
Crystal.
How do you reach anything? But I think Scott's probably just a little bit taller than I am, but Blake is really tall. I think Blake's
that's true too.
Blake's like 6'1" or so.
Oh yeah.
He's pretty tall.
Yeah, and Brett was always very little throughout his life until he turned about 18, and then he 17.
So he kind of
about 17.
He broadened up a little bit. He was always pretty slender, but then when I seen him last time, he's pretty broad. He's a big kid.
Yeah, I mean, he's a big kid. Yeah, and better at basketball. I mean, he was really good he's very good at sports. Very athletic, like his dad. I mean, we always laugh. Jessica's not athletic. Brett and Lauren are very athletic.
That's kind of funny, actually, Jessica. But was she more the academic, though?
Oh, yeah. Luckily, they all got his brains.
God.
Right?
I was terrible in school.
I was awful.
I graduated
Jeff used to laugh at me.
I graduated in the bottom 30 of my class. Not the bottom 30%, the bottom 30.
The bottom 5.
And I think we had 320 people in my class. It was terrible. Of course, I had a minor blip in an otherwise stellar career, and I can talk about that some other time. That's another podcast on its own.
Yeah, I was terrible. Jeff I didn't know it, but he was wanting to date me, and he would always laugh at me because I'd say the wrong answer in class.
He's like, I'm totally dating her.
Son of a bitch.
And so did you ever fear when you started building your new life with Steve that the memory of Jeff or what happened would ever kind of be an issue within the marriage? Or did you ever have that?
I didn't. But maybe it'd be interesting to see how other people perceived it as. But I had grown, I felt like so much as a person that I could separate it. Maybe.
Well,
I don't.
You obviously knew Steve wasn't him, so you had to accept that.
Correct. And I also knew that my kids, Lauren, Jessica, and Brett, still call him Steve. Because a couple people have said to me, well, why don't they call him Dad? And I said, well, maybe that's my fault because their dad is their dad, Jeff. And I felt like that was his. I mean, they have their dad.
Right.
Steve, Steve is their dad.
He's their dad. He's been there since, as young as they were. And he took that responsibility right on.
Yeah. And it's nothing against Steve whatsoever.
But at the time, that was your, and it becomes habit to kids.
And it's very habit.
Yeah.
But if one of my kids was talking to somebody else, they would say, well, my parents, or they would say my mom and dad. But it was also my habit to call him Steve to those kids. And then Steve and I also have 2 other children, but I always never crossed that line. But I don't know if that's good or bad.
Did Steve ever question that or ever ask why?
Never.
Never. He just accepted it.
He's even been called Mr. McKinney because he's coached so much little kids. And so he coached all 3 of our kids. And so people would think he was Mr. McKinney because their last name was McKinney.
Right.
That is always one regret that I had. And Steve wouldn't have minded at all. I wish I would have been McKinney Litvak.
Just so there's that association to understand the difference.
Yes,
yeah.
Because I always thought that was so important to have, not to be called the Litvaks, because we weren't just the Litvaks.
Right. You felt like it was kind of taken away from the identity of the first 3 kids.
Correct.
Understand. Well, and I can see that.
And I think it would have. Even to this day, I think it's important.
Well, they have to understand there's a large part of them that was outside of that beforehand, right?
Yes.
And I know Pam and I, when we got married, and she had Brittany and Aaron, I had Andrew and Nick, and then we had Chloe together. Nobody would have ever known we weren't the Rogers, right? Because anytime we went anywhere, everybody just thought we were a family, and we were. But we always, we would tell them, well, no, that's, Brittany Adams, Aaron Adams, they have a different dad, but, and just kind of explain the dynamic so people understood there is, there's a part of them that wasn't, there's an identity outside of the Rogers, right? And it wasn't to anybody's detriment, but it was just, I think it was being respectful to the children, and maybe their dad or whatever, but, and they've always called me Kay. I would never have allowed them to call me dad.
Yeah. Have they ever called you? They've never called you dad. I guess I've never picked up on that either.
No, and I wouldn't have let them simply because Alan is their dad. And I always would have, I felt that would be very disrespectful to him. And I know how I felt as a father a divorced father that had my sons had a stepdad, and I would have felt very disrespected if they would have called him dad. So that was very important to me. Although he has been a wonderful father to them in my absence when they were there with him, and he loves them like their own. It just, maybe that's who knows, maybe that's a societal ingrained thing taught into you or whatever it is. But that was just, to your point, it was very important for me people to understand that there was different dynamics here.
Yeah.
Geez, Jill, you're crazy. I didn't know you were this crazy.
Which part?
All of it. And then you guys have built a fantastic life since then, too.
Yeah. Yeah. And, there's been struggles along the way, and I think back, what did I do right? What did I do wrong?
I think we all can take ownership of that in our own lives. I still resent you a little bit.
Why? Because I'm so good looking?
No, because you left me in the middle of your daughters when they were fighting. And then you laughed at me when I got up and walked away because I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to get killed here. And you thought that was hilarious, Joe. You remember that?
No.
Liar. You're laughing. You're like,
I thought we were talking about grieving.
We are, but I'm grieving that right now. I'm grieving that right now.
I'm grieving
that because it scared me. And then you walked.
It
scared me. And then you run up laughing. You were stuck in the middle. I know. I'm just like, I don't know what to do here. This is crazy.
What's happening here? Oh, somebody's fighting.
Oh, great. I think I'm going to go over here.
What a shock.
And I thought
they were one big happy family.
Well, we are. The kids got to figure out how to get along, right?
Yeah.
It happens in every family. So did you ever feel when you had your hard days, did you just kind of find a way to take your time and have your moments, and that way it didn't really impact anybody else? Or was it obvious to Steve or the kids if you were having a rough day with what happened, losing Jeff and stuff? If you're having a day, did they kind of pick up on it and kind of give you your space to be able to do that?
No, because I think my way of dealing with it is to don't let anybody see it.
You bury it.
And not that I bury it. I have a lot of thoughts. It's like, it's like I tell people, I probably don't go 15 seconds without thinking about Jeff.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't want to be sad.
Yeah. Yeah, because I think
and
that's...
maybe I didn't talk about enough of it either because it was so painful.
It's brutal. It is brutal. I talked a lot about Nick because I was afraid of it becoming a taboo subject. I didn't want it to be one of the things like, well, we don't talk about that. We don't talk about that. No, we're going to talk about that. I had 11 years with him, right? And I was afraid that if I didn't talk about him, people would think it... Well, I think I wanted people to know it was okay to talk about him in front of me because I was okay with talking about him. So if they had a memory of him, it was okay.
Are you still okay to talk about him right now?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I talk about him all the time. There's moments, don't get me wrong, I have my moments and I have upsetting times and I kind of do my own thing, get my head clear and take a few seconds. And I'm kind of like you. I don't necessarily always verbalize it. I kind of just keep it to myself a little bit. Pam knows. She knows. She'll see it. She'll be like, you're having a tough day, huh? I'm like, yeah, I'm just having a few minutes, And a lot of times it doesn't last very long.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Sometimes it may just be an hour or something or some weird thing triggered a memory and because I'm with you. I don't want to be sad all the time.
Yeah.
And
maybe my thoughts are more like, I more or less feel sorry for Jeff because he wasn't here to see it, to see what happened or
to see how the kids have grown and matured.
I got to watch it all. He didn't get to.
Oh, he's watching it.
Yeah, I know that. I know.
But not... He is. But to your point.
Yeah.
But it would have been nice for him to be able to share that.
Correct.
And that's okay. I think that's a normal... In my mind, because I have it kind of the opposite. I look at it, I wonder what he would be like now.
Yes.
Would he be any taller? Nick. Yeah. Would he be any taller? Would he have ever put on any damn weight? Would he ever calm down?
Would I have liked his girlfriend?
Would I have liked his girlfriend? What would he look like today?
Yeah.
So all those things, it's the same thing, just reversed, right? It's like,
You always wonder, like, how would Jeff have handled this situation with his children, or
what would have Jeff done this time? I mean,
yes,
and so I think that's just going to be normal for the rest. I mean, it is what it is. You're always going to have those thoughts. And like you said, I'm with you. There isn't 15 seconds in a day that some memory of Nick doesn't pop in my head, but I always look at him fondly, because that's all I got.
Well, and I think you have to get to that point.
Oh yeah, it took a while. It took a while and probably a lot of bad decisions and way too much alcohol.
Well, it took a lot longer for you to get there than what but of course, so there again, you may ask somebody and be like, oh, they might be like, well, no, she was like this, or she was.
I would say a lot of the issues that I went through, and even that Pam went through, unfortunately, they were pretty broadcast.
Yes.
They were, the families knew them. I mean, they knew.
Yeah,
we separated how many times, and we did stupid things how many times, and we did. I mean,
you're very open. I mean, you guys are very like.
Everybody's just like, oh my God, those guys again?
What's going on now?
Jesus, will they ever figure this? Really? That's like the 4th time this week.
I know.
But we finally got to a point where we're back and we're comfortable with where we're at, but it took a while. I mean, it's been 10 years. I mean, we've only been really living here without major issues for a year. And what I mean major issues, but, where we didn't separate or didn't have me have a meltdown or whatever for a little over a year, and things were pretty calm.
With you and Pam, I feel like you love each other. I think that
that depends on what day you ask, because I would argue there's probably days that she probably doesn't, wants to strangle me.
Well, that's with me with Steve too, but it's like you guys have, and I think if you have that, you try to make it work.
You do. And sometimes it's not, like you said, it isn't easy.
No.
It's not always rainbows and butterflies, I mean, life is tough and it's brutal. It owes you nothing, and nobody's ever guaranteed you an easy life.
And I think the other thing that I learned also is that I'm not the only one that lost her husband. I mean, I thought, well, mine and Jeff's relationship was the most special, and you guys have no idea. You go through all that, but it happens to people every day.
Yeah.
Every day. And, it's like I said, well, I hope I never have to find out which is worse, a child or a husband. And I don't think you can measure it.
I don't think so either, because I would think that the loss and the grief are incredibly difficult on their own, on their own merits, because those are probably the 2 worst things that could ever happen to somebody.
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
I mean, those 2 things are not the cycle of life. Right.
Correct. Yes.
And I would think they're exceptionally difficult in their own merits. I don't think there is a comparison, because I think they're both probably just crappy, period.
Yes.
I mean, that's
because, I have to deal with too that, when Steve walks out the door, will he come back?
Right. Yeah. Do you have a lot of that fear with him, you think?
I have a fear with that with everybody.
Especially as many risks as Steve likes to take. I mean, how many times has he broke his leg now?
A lot.
Like 10.
I can't count.
Can't count. I mean, the only guy I know that'll come up in the hospital right after a guy has a weight loss surgery eats a freaking Subway sandwich in the room with him.
And he didn't care.
No, he's like, I'm hungry.
I know.
Well, I would be if I could, but currently I just had my stomach taken out.
Everybody thinks he's so nice.
Yeah, what kind of guy does that? He is a great guy. I love Steve. I wish I would have had the opportunity to meet Jeff. I know Pam always says that.
I wish you did.
She's like, too. You would have loved him. You guys' sense of humor is a lot alike.
Yeah. Yeah. You two are, yeah. I agree with Pam.
Yeah, I'm a little sarcastic and a little. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I am totally one for sure.
I mean, it's like people would be like, oh, that Jeff, he was so great. And I just remember sitting back thinking, okay, he was never home. He was a smart ass.
Really? Well, you didn't see this.
He wasn't that great.
I love the hell out of him, but he wasn't. You don't know him like I do. Oh, Pam will tell you. Even like Aaron and Andrew and them guys, they'll be like, how do you get away with saying that to her? And I'm like, hey, it's been 18 years. After this much time, it's her own fault. She knows how I am. Because I'll tell you, do it now, woman. She's like, really? I'm like, no. But I'm going to try to be in charge.
Good luck with that.
Right.
So, yeah. He was, you would have loved, you two would have gotten along great.
Well, I know me and Steve get along great.
Oh, yeah.
So
I know. Yeah.
I like picking on him. He's like, just stop it.
Poor guy.
He tells me, stop it.
He's a lot kinder than Jeff was.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'll be honest with you, though. That's not uncommon when you have to have that, almost that killer mentality when you have that drive in sports and stuff. I mean,
Correct.
That's not uncommon for them guys to not have a lot of sympathy. And not that they don't have sympathy, but they're not good at showing it, right?
Correct.
Because they don't, in especially as many years as he played, there wasn't sympathy there.
Correct. Not at all.
Not in that aspect of something. That was a big part of his life.
I mean, I'll never forget Jessica. She watched the Michael Jordan thing and she was like, well, he wasn't very nice. And I go, he reminds me a lot of your dad. I'm like, I'm sorry, but
those are
seriously, he does. It was just like, you know what? I want to win. And I mean, I'll never forget one time he met these friends of my parents and they were from Morton. And he said, well, you better get a good look at my front side because next year on the field, you're just going to see my front side. And I was like, you can't say that.
What is wrong with you?
But I still married him.
Well, it's that type A personality, that drive to win, right? And there's nothing going to stop them and nothing going to get in the way.
Well, that's what I tried telling Jessica. You may not like Michael Jordan, but that's what made him a great athlete.
Right.
There's a lot of people out there that have athletic ability, but
there's a lot of people out there that have that same type of drive that are not athletes. They're the CEOs, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they have that same take no prisoner attitude, and it's we're going to get it done.
Yeah.
That's probably why I'm never going to be a CEO.
Me either, because I'm so kind.
And you work so much.
Nice.
There's that whole, well, Joe, you have to have a job first. I know, but to be a CEO, you have to have a job. Just saying.
I'll go home and look for one.
No, you won't. Don't lie. Don't. And, well, you'll get one, work it for 2 days and quit, and Steve won't even know. He's like, I didn't even know you quit.
Poor guy.
I know.
Poor guy.
He just shakes his head. He's like, whatever.
That is, I must say, too, that is one part of Steve that came from Jeff and his death is that I'm very independent. And he'll say to me, he says, well, I know you're going to be okay if I die. And it's true on one hand because I did learn that.
You learned your own strength.
Correct. Not that I want him to die.
No. So we're not planning that.
No. I mean, no.
There's no change to life insurance in the last couple of weeks here, Jill.
Well, I don't know.
You don't know. We're not going to talk about that. That's another podcast.
But no. I do tell people that lose somebody, I'm like, you need to talk yourself out of it. And you need to go on in life. I would have missed out on so much had I sat on my couch in my house and felt sorry for myself.
Well, on that note, Jill, I think that's a perfect place to end because that's actually some really good advice, and I think people need to listen to that.
Yeah. Yep.
So I appreciate you coming on. That was awesome.
Yeah, I love you, Kate.
I love you too, Jill. Even though you're a little too skinny, it's kind of gross.
Shh. I have an eating disorder from my husband dying.
Whatever. That's the worst joke ever. God. All right, folks, on that note, we're going to call it a day. Again, I appreciate you guys listening to We All Grieve, and a big thank you to my special guest, Jill. I really appreciate you sharing your story and your insight and how you did this. Until next time, everybody, peace.